We have a belief at Modern Treasury that payment rails never die. So the reality is like you're living in a world where the economy runs on a lot of different payment rails, and we can argue about which one's going to grow faster or slower, but none of them are dying.
Dimitri Dadiomov is the co-founder of Modern Treasury, and after powering over $400 billion in corporate volume, he explains why stablecoins aren't replacing banks, they're upgrading them.
And that's true for healthcare, it's true for real estate, it's true for investment management, it's true for payroll. There's big sleepy industries that don't really run on credit cards, they run on bank rails. But you have capital needs over the weekend, and it's a 3-day weekend. All of a sudden, the bank cutoff times, wire cutoffs, ACH cutoffs are a problem. And so being able to run stablecoins 24/7 is very useful and very valuable. Modern Treasury clients, new or existing, can now use stablecoins as another payment rail alongside ACH, RTP, FedNow, wire, paper check, etc. And for these cross-border use cases, I believe that stablecoins are or will be the best option in a good number of cases.
Catch the full strategy on automating global payroll, building AI-ready payment networks, and turning crypto into an API with Drew Rogers and Dimitri Dadiomov, only on Stable Dash.
The city by the Golden Gate. Truly the city of many wonders.
All right. So Dimitri, so excited to have you here. I'm very, very, very excited to explore all things stablecoins with Modern Treasury. And as I was mentioning, I know that there's so much there, and really excited to dive into it and appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite. It's great to be here.
Yeah. You were at a very stable conference last year.
I was.
Is that true? And this was before the Beam acquisition, right?
Correct.
So zoom us back to that moment last year and maybe compare and contrast the feelings, or a lot has changed, maybe get us up to speed. What's happened in the last year since it's a very stable conference?
Well, I think the first very stable conference last year was very well timed because a lot of things happened, around that time or just after. So between the Bridge acquisition, the passage of the Genius Act, a lot of things kind of started moving in the direction of making stablecoins really much more of a real utility kind of used product. And so at Modern Treasury, we've supported a lot of companies over for many years that were, tangentially touching that world. So crypto companies using it for fiat and things like that. And when we, part of what we saw there, also we went to Bitso's conference in August in Mexico City, where you really saw the set of companies that are outside the US for whom stablecoins mean so much more. So I think that what led to us getting excited about stablecoins, starting to use stablecoins ourselves, starting to get companies being interested in supporting companies on that, and eventually led to the Beam acquisition. A lot of that was came from that conference a year ago.
Tell us a bit about the acquisition itself. Like, how did it come to be? How'd you meet Dan? What was it about Beam that was really attractive to you guys? And we'll start there. And then I'd love to know more around since then. Like, how has that product, what have you been able to build with it? Like, bring us into that a little bit.
Yeah. So I've known Dan for a long time. So Dan left Visa to start Beam, probably in the 22 timeframe, and reached out to me through some founder network or friend or investor, and just wanted to meet and chat about sort of this founder advice. I found what he was working on super interesting. Got to know him, probably talked every 6 months or something like that.
What did you find interesting about it, if you can recall? Like, what was it that seemed unique?
For one, I think the Visa crypto team in circa 2020, 2021 was really one of those places where you could actually, there's a lot of thought leadership coming out of it. And so I just thought it was interesting that he saw an opportunity. He wanted to create this instant payout kind of opportunity around taking RTP and taking some of those things and connecting them to stable coins. And we've been big supporters of RTP. We added it in 2019. We've done a lot of volume on it. And yet it is very early still in the US on RTP versus something like Pix in Brazil or UPI in India. So I'm a big believer in instant payments. And the instant payment use case for stablecoins is so powerful, right? Like when you think about the stablecoin sandwich, the instant payment is a big part of what creates or what turns that into a really useful product. So anyway, what Dan was working on was just interesting to me. I think it made sense that would be necessary.
Why don't we, as we paint the picture of Modern Treasury, and you guys are doing a lot of things non-stablecoin related, obviously. As we paint the context of the business, I would love to know in your mind mentally how stablecoins fit into the broader picture. Like, paint us a picture of the modern treasury business and broadly what that looks like. And then specifically for that, what things like stablecoins unlock, what this acquisition unlocks, maybe that was not possible before or accelerates the business generally.
Yeah. So if we start, I'll maybe go back to the beginning. One of the problem that we really set out to solve, Matt, Sam, and I, the three co-founders of Modern Treasury, we all worked together at an online mortgage company. And we had to integrate to a bank, and we had to integrate to wires, ACH, paper checks even. That's how mortgage runs, right? There's a lot of developer infrastructure built out for credit cards because e-commerce was the fundamental need on the internet. And when you moved into an ACH wire and check world, and that's true for healthcare, it's true for real estate, it's true for investment management, it's true for payroll. There's big sleepy industries that don't really run on credit cards. They run on bank rails. So what we set out to solve was, let's go build the best developer infrastructure for bank rails. Let's turn that into something that the CFO can live with, right? So the CFO and the finance team needs to be able to manage and manage approvals and manage reporting and data and all that sort of thing. And so that's what we've been focused on. So we've done $400 billion in payments across all these bank rail. I think what stablecoins, there's specific use cases where stablecoins are really powerful for corporate clients. So you hear, I kind of bucket them to three areas. One is you hear a lot about the stablecoin sandwich, the cross-border things, like how do you pay out to somebody in a different geography? That's traditionally been pretty complicated. And stablecoins are making that a lot easier. So, if I take that an example, like Modern Treasury clients, new or existing, can now use stablecoins as another payment rail alongside ACH, RTP, FedNow, wire, paper check, et cetera. And for these cross-border use cases, I believe that stablecoins are or will be the best option in a good number of cases. Another big use case is all things pre-funding. So if you are a purely domestic business, but you have capital needs over the weekend, and it's a 3-day weekend, all of a sudden, the bank cutoff times, wire cutoffs, ACH cutoffs are a problem. And so being able to run stablecoins 24/7 is very useful and very valuable. And then the kind of the last one, which we haven't seen as much in use, but I think it's coming, is really you're a multinational, you have banks and bank accounts in every country. You have to overfund those accounts because you want to make sure you don't miss out on payroll in Japan or this big invoice that's coming in Mexico or something. And so what happens is these companies overfund accounts all over the world. So I think that being able to put funds in a central cloud account, the stablecoin account that earns good yield and that has instant drops into different accounts all over the world allows you to sort of run everything in a much more, real-time, efficient way. And that's very valuable. But of course, it requires a lot of infrastructure to understand what's happening and to manage it and to operationally run it.
Something that seems really uniquely powerful about Modern Treasury right now something we really want to see is just more volume, more issuance, more real companies who may not be using things like stablecoins for their business to actually integrate them, to actually get on base with them. And the difficulty a lot of them face in our experience and seeing them and talking with them is that it's often a question of how do I bring these new things into my existing systems? Hey, this sounds great, but here's what we have. And how do things like stablecoins fit into that strategically? Modern Treasury, from my vantage point, seems like such a embedded, sticky thing for a lot of these companies who are using you guys to then just be able to say, you're already using Modern Treasury for all of these things. Let's just add stablecoin as another type of asset or another type of node on this system. And it's not just you can continue to do what you're doing and just add this as an additional thing. Have you found that is true where the existing client base, as you've started to roll out some of these features, are getting more and more comfortable just turning that on? Or are you seeing stablecoins and the Beam acquisition and how this is starting to come to life within the business? Is that becoming more of a net new category for Modern Treasury? Or maybe both? How are you seeing the unlock affect existing customers, new customers? What does that look like right now?
I think we have a belief at Modern Treasury that payment rails never die. So I think when you wear the founder hat and you try to make a case for a specific startup, a specific technology, we use the term disruption, and we talk about how, you can just stop doing this thing and you're going to start doing this other thing. And that may be true within some narrow use cases, but in reality, at big corporates, if you have a big business, you have to support a lot of different payment rails, and it's not going away. I mean, we could have probably been sitting here in the 1970s talking about how ACH is going to kill, paper checks, or cards are going to kill ACH, or these things just keep on adding. So a core belief of ours is that if you are going to look at a mature business, and by the way, even if you took one business line and made it all, stablecoin or all ACH or all real-time payments or what have you, then the company grows and makes an acquisition and you inherit all of their business practices, and now you have more. So the reality is you're living in a world where the economy runs on a lot of different payment rails, and we can argue about which one's going to grow faster or slower, but none of them are dying. They're all going to be there. And the CFO, the CTO, the operations teams, they have to have a way to manage them. So that is kind of maybe a little bit of a philosophical way of answering your question, but we are seeing customers who appreciate the fact that an API call to Modern Treasury has an attribute called type. And you can say type equals ACH, type equals FedNow, type equals stablecoin. And that is all you have to kind of know. Now, obviously, there's an education element. A lot of companies, if you're thinking about the way big companies run, they usually do POCs that try to do sort of a kind of let's prove this worked 100 times before we scale it out. I think that's going to come this year, where these innovative pilots become much more high volume practical things. But it's not, I believe that it's not to the exclusion of the old payment rails. It's just going to make their life more complex.
There are still nickels and dimes and pennies in cash drawers, and doesn't mean Apple Pay and credit cards. And I think it's a powerful way to think about it. And I agree. So pilots, things are getting tested. Big companies are getting their feet wet with this stuff. What are those conversations like right now? I think a lot of people we've been talking to have said, if only you knew who was testing, if only you knew, because a lot of these big companies, they, from what we're kind of getting at, is they don't really want to talk very publicly yet about a lot of this. They're still learning. They're still, maybe that might take a while. What's your experience working with these types of companies at that scale? How are you getting them comfortable with this? What types of things have you found they value? Bring us into those chats a little bit.
Yeah, it's hard to answer that question in general, because not all different companies are different, but who you are and what your role is inside those companies is also different. So
you're mainly selling this to CFOs, treasury teams.
We're actually primarily selling to chief product officers, chief technology officers, okay. CIOs, right? So we're selling to the people who are effectively being asked by, either they're trying to drive a new product experience in a company, or they're being asked by the CFO or whoever to actually bring this to life. And so I think that we of course spend time with CFOs and so on, but ultimately they're not the ones who are building stablecoin experiences into their products. And so the decision around the kind of what do we build? What do we buy? Who do we connect to? What coin do we support? What chain do we support? All those types of questions. I think that it's new for them. And so I think that there's two things that we have to keep in mind. One is that they're going to want to go on this educational journey to understand, what decisions are one-way doors, which decisions are two-way doors. If I bake something into my product, what's going to make it difficult for me to have the flexibility in the future to be responsive to how the market is moving, because we all know the market is moving quickly, and that's exciting, but it's also a little bit paralyzing, right? Because if you are new to it and you lock yourself into a certain path, that's challenging. And so I think one of the messages that we try to bring to people is, look, we know that fiat is around. We know that you need to be able to ledger things. We know that you have to be able to report on these things. It doesn't matter what coin you're on, that if you're a public company, that has to be reported to to Wall Street every 90 days. How does that number get there? I don't care what coin it came from, but you have to be able to manage it, right? And that's a maybe very specific example, but again, that's the kind of things they're thinking about is okay, I can demonstrate that I can do 3 payments and it all worked and the money got there on time, and I'm not terrified of it being risky, which I think was the case, pre Genius Act, pre last year's ABSE. I think now it's okay, cool. I buy it. It works. It functionally works, but does it work inside of the envelope of my corporate, organizationally? Does it work?
So, man, there's so much here. When I think about the sheer depth of integration that it probably requires to successfully work with, one of the things I've seen publicly is your work with Anchorage, for example. Anchorage had some sort of launch with you guys lately and was hey, we're using Modern Treasury. Just looking at that business Oh my goodness. Like the amount of complexity that a business like Anchorage Digital has, offering a lot of these services, reserves, custody, like issuance, there's so much there. To know that Modern Treasury is under the hood and a lot of this for companies like that, it seems extremely exciting to me. Can you speak a little bit to how you think about the maybe user base or customer base, the types of companies? Like I think when I first started hearing about the Modern Treasury stablecoin involvement, I think was a specific integration or launch that you guys had with Braille. And there was like some specific stuff there. Maybe speak a little bit to like these types of crypto native use cases, issuance partners. How do you mentally map how Modern Treasury works with the people in this room versus like partners versus customers versus enablers? Like map that a little bit for me because you guys sit in so many different places.
I think that there's broadly speaking, I map it into two different categories. There's companies that are maybe slightly larger, more mature, and they have a lot of different bank accounts, bank infrastructure already. And they come to us with the problems of like, how do I connect to them? How do I manage what's happening across them? That's a very different problem than somebody who's just getting started. Again, could be crypto native or not, but if they're just getting started, they have their first product, they're trying to, grow quickly and scale. What they're really solving for is speed to market. So one of the offerings that we have done in the past, we were very software only, and we let every client figure out the right bank partner for them, and we followed them basically on that. But that means there's an implementation period. There is time to get that done. And of course, if you're a large client and you're complicated and you have custody and things like that, like it takes time to set that up. There are a lot of clients. In fact, I think there's a lot of people here who are just starting a new product. Could be inside of a big company or could be a brand new startup. And what they really prize is simplicity and kind of a bundled offering that gets them to market as fast as possible. And we now have a product with our PSP that is fiat native, that is stablecoin native, and that you can go live on in a week. And, that's something that's really powerful. That's something that allows you to get started, be able to initiate payment transfers, be able to ledger all that stuff, be able to over time, when the time is right for you, as you've scaled up to add another, bank account or whatever, like we call the forever payments platform. Like we want you to be able to get started quickly. And we also want you to not be locked in a way that doesn't allow you to have the direct relationship. And so if I was to decompose that bundle, I really think there's 4 elements to it. There's the payment software, there's the ledgering software, there's the compliance program, and there's the bank relationship. And so
say it again. One more time.
Payment software and ledgering software. Historically, that's the 2 things that we've always sold and done.
That's what I think most people know you for.
That's
those
right.
2 things.
That's right. A compliance program and the bank relationship and the bank setup are the other 2 things. And in the past, we've always had clients go set those 2 things up on their own. And we very much still support it. We very much have customers who are onboarding and doing that. But if that's the only choice, the challenge with that is that it makes the implementation cycle, the sales cycle, the startup cycle much longer.
Slows the deals down.
And so, and it slows the deals down, but it also slows a customer's ability to get started. So if you go back to what does the CTO care about? What does the CPO care about? They want to get the product out to market to start collecting feedback on, is this a good product to invest in? Should we change things? What's wrong with it? And so we've put together a bundle that allows them, and this was part of the Beam acquisition, is to be able to really partner up with the right banking infrastructure, we have a compliance program that you're using effectively by using this PSP. And I think that's really powerful. So we're seeing a lot more volume of net new logos that are coming on board now because we, like you said, made the sales cycle a lot shorter. And we expect that the successful companies that have grown a lot to use the payment software and ledgering software kind of on their own with future bank partners they want to work with. And we're very, very supportive of that. But that's not what they need now. What they need now is speed to market, simplicity. Give me something bundled that just gets me going so that I can prove to myself, to my investors, to my future investors, what have you, that this product is worth really scaling.
What sort of flexibility does the bucket 3 and bucket 4, the compliance and banking layer, like what sort of flexibility do clients get around how to architect or set those things up? Like I'd imagine that there are multiple different potential partners or vendors or people that you could plug and play into those layers. Like what are the core partners for making that work today? What kind of flexibility do I have around even choices like custody? Like maybe my users, we want them to hold the keys to those wallets versus we really want a company like Modern Treasury to be trusted to do that. Is that level of flexibility there? And just speak a little bit to those dynamics.
Yeah, flexibility is always a two-edged sword, right? So if you going back to the person who wants to move fast, sometimes if you go back to, like, for example, the non-crypto native companies, a lot of them don't have strong opinions about, what chain or what coin to start using. They're looking to us for advice on that. And so the short answer is we don't provide a ton of flexibility in the PSP offering. We come to you with some partners that we've vetted. We've announced working closely with Paxos on it. We have more announcements coming.
Great.
And that's but again, like, I think what the end user is actually looking for is not so much flexibility as it is like simplicity and speed to market. Certainly we can support flexibility, but you're now in bucket one and we can talk about that sort of as a separate conversation. But now you're talking about a setup that's maybe a little bit longer.
And to oversimplify this a little bit, Modern Treasury and Paxos can work together on perhaps things around licensing, custody, reserves. And then that is a relationship you guys can have, them and maybe others as well, to essentially offer those as a service to these clients who can have that, kind of defaulted or set up so that choice of custodian, regulation partner, license partner, like by default, from what you're getting at, is like, it sounds like you're finding that just having those things bundled and ready to go is actually a really great way to accelerate. Yeah. People appreciate that.
Not to belabor the analogy, but when I think about when people talk about stablecoin sandwiches, like, are you a grocery store, or you you can have like the wrapped sandwich that's ready to go, or you can have the Subway version where you're like picking everything into it.
Yeah.
And
you have the menu items, but you can customize them if you want. But like, here are the four that we really.
Yeah, but if you're customizing now, you're opening up the plastic and you're getting into. So I think they're both valid, and there's use case and there's product market fit for people who want both versions. I think there's value in them being two different aisles where we can tell people, hey, we've put together the best, sandwich we've been able to make. Here it is, run with it. Certainly if you don't want mustard on it, we can, anyway, the metaphor is getting too far. The people that are looking for something that's a little bit more bundled, actually, if they're asking for too much flexibility, it just is a signal they should be in the other aisle.
As we wrap here, bring us a little bit into this year. I'm assuming you'll be here again next year, a very stable conference, season 3.
Sure hope so.
From now until then, you guys have made some really, really key developments since last event. Talked about Beam, a lot of the pilot customers that you're starting to deploy this with. What are some goals personally that you have as a leader when you think about the stablecoin conversation, functionality of things like that within the business? A year from now, maybe when we chat again, like what are some personal goals that you hope to see? What kind of things are you imparting on the team as a leader right now? What are you strategically thinking through?
The thing that's kind of always the same is you want to follow customers and support them and make sure that what we're doing as an organization is supporting them in the right way. And I think one of the things that's been so interesting, kind of maybe to deviate from the stable conversation, is just the impact of AI on engineering and other teams, and our ability as a company to just produce so much more with the same team and kind of running full speed with those tools. That's going to be really powerful. So when you look at, it's hard to even imagine where the state of coding is going to look like and what our customers are going to be using. So we spent a lot of time thinking about, like, what is a sandbox in the world of agents? Like, how do we write our API docs to make sure that the coding agents are going to pick them up and use them in the right way. I'm not even talking about like agentic commerce and new use cases. I'm talking about more just like how we work and what the interface between Modern Treasury and our clients is. And we really were born as an API first company. I think the need for good APIs was the window that we jumped into with, hey, like, companies that are moving money need good APIs. And that's something that at the time in 2018, banks really did not know how to serve very well. And they've improved since 2018, but technology is moving fast as well. And so there's like new agentic type of questions there. So I'm really excited about what does it mean for with stablecoins allowing you to go more global. Like, we're going to see startups that are moving at much faster speed and much more global than you have ever been able to do in the financial kind of services, financial technology business. And that's, there's a lot of challenges that will come with that, but it's a huge opportunity. And we're very excited to see what happens there.
And Modern Treasury's presence globally is, global firm, working with clients all over the world. What does that look like right now in terms of like footprint?
Yeah, our team is entirely in the U.S., but we work with a lot of multinational companies. So I would say that our focus is definitely on U.S. companies in general, but we support companies outside the U.S. And I think the nature of that question might change in a year. Like, obviously there's remote teams that are all over the world, and so the question of like, where is the PO box that the bank needs to send things to is a tough one to answer in some cases. So
yeah. Well, Dimitri, this was fun. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
We'll see you next year when there's hopefully more great and exciting things to cover in the stablecoin conversation. So appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
The city by the Golden Gate. Truly the city of many wonders.